when I opened the gym, I worked, 70, 80 hours a week. Give me flash forward a year and I got divorced. Hey there, Coach Devin here. A lot of times I've talked on my channel about fitness and health and some of the concerns I have with small business and where the pandemic and COVID-19 has left us. What I want to do right now is talk a little bit about the thought process that people have so we can get this out here around small business owners, because I think there's a lot of stuff around small business owners and a lot of myths that are not necessarily true. So that's what we're going to talk about right about now. All right. So what I have found recently, and I've been a little bit critical of the government on their recent shutdown, on some of their opening things, like, for example, opening schools, but saying that, my gym can only have one-on-one personal training in it, but schools can have 25 kids in a class with a teacher. That type of stuff to me, I think is silly. But one of the things I noticed via some of my comments and being a little bit outspoken during this is a lot of people, well, maybe not a lot of people, but some people have come to me and with some very strange thought processes on business owners and businesses in general. And one of the ones that I want to talk about today is basically a two-pronged one. People who have said to me, either as a business owner, you have lots of money, you're rich because you own a business. You're rolling in money, you're making lots of cash. And the second part of that one is people say either you're rolling in money or you were born into it. Somebody gave you that business, it was easy. You didn't actually do any work for it. So let's break these two down. We'll get to the first one first. Business owners being rich. Look, I've been a small business owner for a long time. 11 years I've owned the gym. I've worked for myself since 2007. So basically, as a business owner, you work for everybody out there. If anybody doesn't know, you basically are taking a gamble on yourself. You say, okay, I think I'm smart enough and I'm a hard enough worker that I can make money and I can go out and do it myself. The thought process that business owners are rich, I think maybe comes from people saying, well, they take in a lot of money. And I always like to say, I take in a lot of money on my right hand and I hand it back out on my left through, staffing and rent and bills and et cetera. Right? That's how this works. A business owner who takes in $1 million, $2 million, $5 million a year isn't keeping that money. Okay? The money goes into the business and then goes out. And the bigger your business gets, the more bills you have. I pay, I'm in my gym right now. I pay, $10,000 a month in rent. And then on top of that, of course, I have leases for equipment. The gym is full of equipment. You have to upgrade equipment all the time. So I have leases on equipment. I've got power. I've got heat, internet, all those things now. Then you get into, staffing, and staffing obviously is one of your biggest ones. So there's a lot of bills. And to say that a business owner, and this is what has been frustrating during the pandemic, is that a lot of people will say, well, as a business owner, you should have, and I've heard this a few times, put your money to one side. You should have, 6 months of money to live on. That's, I don't know, not one business owner that's sitting on 6 months of expenses, including paying themselves, waiting around for a pandemic to start. I think, unfortunately, we have been led to believe, because we see things like big CEOs and stuff like that, where they're making millions of dollars a year, and we say, all business owners do that. It's not true. Small business owners work really, really hard, and sometimes for less money than they could make somewhere else. You know what I mean? We take on a ton of stress. We create jobs. We do a lot of things, but we don't necessarily take home a lot of money, because in the end of the day, say I don't make enough money in a month, I don't not pay my staff, right? I have to pay them. I don't not pay the power. I don't not pay the heat. I have to pay the leases. Got to pay the rent. The person that is last on the list is me, right? So I take the money last. And I think that's something that people sometimes don't realize, that, your back's against the wall. You need to make a fair amount of money just to get going every day. And it's sometimes a huge number. Some businesses are $50,000 or whatever a month just to, keep the lights on and their rent going, and they haven't even paid staff yet. I say all the time, I need about 15 grand a month before I pay staff, right? So that's just fixed costs every month. That's what I need to make. It's not chump change. It's not, now I'm not saying it's a ton of money, but it is a fair amount of money that's a gun to your head every single month. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, oh, those small business owners, they're doing great. They're not. I don't know small business owners who are rocking out millionaires. They're not. We are hard workers. We're people who have made a bet on ourselves. We have created jobs, done a lot of things, but to say that we're rich is not, it's not a thing. And let's get to the second one, either the born into it. I've heard this from a bunch of people. Anytime somebody wants to criticize me, they're like, well, you must have been born into it. Your parents probably gave you that business. Okay. No, I did grow up in a business family, right? My parents owned a computer store. My brother now owns it. My sister actually is an entrepreneur too. She owns a daycare. I've owned a gym for, like I said, 11 years, and I've worked for myself since I was 7 as a trainer. So I've done this a long time, but nobody gave it to me. And I would say that most businesses are in the same boat. We've created something from nothing. And I'm not saying that we should be congratulated and said, oh my gosh, look what you did. You created something from nothing. But it is true. We do literally create. I mean, I had a dream in my mind. I wanted to have my own gym. I wanted to run it the way I would run it, make sure the clients are first, those type of things, right? I wanted to follow what I thought was the way to take care of the client best. I was working in the big box gym, didn't like the way they were doing things. I thought the clients came last and the staff came second last and profits was first, and I didn't want it to be about that. I didn't like that idea, so I wanted to go out on my own to do it. So in my case, I created something from absolutely nothing. From a thought in my head, a whole lot of hard work, that's how I created the gym. Now, the other thing that springs to mind on the, you were handed this, is it's not like that. Even if someone is given a business or had grew up in the business and works in the business, my brother grew up in my family's business, he works like a dog. Still. Because you still are 100% on the hook for stuff. He's not rich. He's just working. My friend Cameron, he grew up in his family's business. He continues to work in his family's business. Again, he's done well because he's worked really, really hard. Business owners, if they have one thing in common with each other, it's the ability, well, two things, the ability to, want to bet on yourself. And then the second one is the fact that they just are willing to work like dogs. When I opened the gym, I worked, 70, 80 hours a week. Give me a, flash forward a year and I got divorced. It's no fun. But to say, oh, you're born into it, it's easy, it actually takes away from the hard work that is put out there. And I don't think we need to put business owners on a pedestal and say, oh my gosh, you guys are the greatest things since sliced bread. I'm not saying that. But I do think the rhetoric that I think a lot of people will put out there is not helpful. Small business owners, almost 70% of Nova Scotia is employed by small businesses. That means that the major part, over 50% of our entire population works for a small business like mine. From somebody who had an idea and worked really hard and built that idea up. And I understand it's human nature to say, I can do anything you can do. Right? I get that in my head sometimes. In fitness, I'll be like, oh, somebody lifted that, I can do that. Somebody ran that fast, I can run that fast. That's human nature. We do that all the time. And I think some of that rolls off. And then we say things like, all business owners are rich because, they have a business. Not a thing. You must be born into it and everybody gave it to you. Not a thing. Or the other one that I've heard quite often is, well, what about your staff? Your staff worked really hard. Well, 100% they worked really hard. That is true. I will say this, I think that my staff, I have a great staff, and they do work very hard, and they're conscientious people. I would never take away what they do. They are integral in what I do. And most small businesses, when they're working with your staff, you work with your staff alongside them. I work alongside my staff every day, so we're doing the same things day in, day out, and then I run the business on top of that. And I'm not saying that I'm somehow special. I don't think I'm any brighter than any of them. They're all very conscientious, hardworking people. That's who they are. And together, we've managed to create this environment. So I don't give myself, 100% credit and say, oh my gosh, I did it all by myself. I did put a lot of time and energy into it. I took a ton of financial risk with it. But, I don't think I'm the be-all and end-all and the smartest guy in the room. I have never thought that. So next time you hear somebody make a comment about small business where they have lots of money, stop complaining, stop looking for a handout. Understand that that's not real. That's not true. Small businesses actually are the backbone of our economy, and most small business owners are living on the same streets you were, and sometimes have less money than you have. And second off, not all of them are born into it. Lots of them come, like me, come from an entrepreneurial family, but that doesn't mean that anybody gave them anything. It means that they started something themselves because they had a dream and a thought process. So let's look at a positive with small businesses and understand their importance. We don't have to bow down to them and say they're super, they're the most important thing in the world, but ripping them and saying that they're just looking for handouts, or they're all rich, or ripping off the system, or they are, somehow handed everything that they've had. That is just not true. If you have comments, questions, things you want me to talk about, write them up down below. I would love to hear from you. It's always helpful when I hear from people on YouTube. It's great. I enjoy hearing from you. So any comments, I would love to hear. Have yourself a great day, everybody. Don't fight the awesome.